What's up, Canucks fans? Welcome to the line change. And in this video, we're going to be going over a question that's been posed by an article on Canucks Army, and it begs the question: is Jonathan Lekkerimaki becoming underrated? Now, I haven't read this article yet, so I'm going to be going into it blind, just like everybody else. I'll leave a link to the article in the description down below. But it makes me think perhaps people are overlooking Jonathan Lekkerimaki, which is interesting considering he is a first-round pick in the draft just a few short seasons ago. Obviously, there was all this hype about him, when he was drafted and when he made his NHL debut. Obviously, last year he spent more time in Abbotsford. He lit it up in Abbey during the season, and then took a bit of a step back during the playoff run. Obviously, there was a little bit about him, dealing with some sort of jaw issue. Like he had some sort of surgery on his jaw, so he missed a good chunk of the Abbotsford Canucks' playoff run. He actually didn't end up playing, I believe, in the final series. So we're going to go over this article, but before I do that, I want to quickly give a shout out and thank you to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of this amazing artwork right here. And you guys can check them out yourselves at gassjackart.com. You guys can also check him out on Instagram at gassjackart. There is a link to his website in the description down below. So let's go ahead and dive into this article written by Stephen Roger. I realized that I've been mispronouncing his last name since I started this podcast. So apologies for that. It's Stephen Roger, not Roget. But he goes on to say the fine folks over at Elite Prospects released their annual ranking of the top 100 NHL-affiliated prospects last week, and 3 Vancouver Canucks prospects made the list. Contrary to most rankings, Tom Willander was not named as Vancouver's top prospect here. In fact, he didn't quite crack the top 50, which is surprising to me, as recently it was made known that perhaps, or at least on some list, Tom Willander was at the top for the Vancouver Canucks prospects. Instead, it was the recently drafted Braden Coots who just managed to sneak into the bottom end of that top 50 at number 44 overall, but nestled right in between Coots and Willander on Elite Prospects list at number 48 overall. And as the Canucks' second best prospect is Jonathan Lekkerimaki. Second best is the exact same ranking given to Lekkerimaki by our own Dave Hall last month, though Hall had Willander ahead of Lekkerimaki, not Coots, and with such consistently high rankings around the media sphere, it's clear that Lekkerimaki is getting at least some of the hype and praise due to him. It's hard to be highly ranked and underrated at the same time. But within the circle of the Vancouver Canucks and their own fans specifically, it does feel as though Lekkerimaki has slowly but surely become overrated all the same. Look around at the mock rosters for the 25-26 season, and you won't see his name appearing all that frequently. The Canucks are known to be on the lookout for additional offense, and yet most are predicting that their top offensive prospect is going to spend the bulk of the year in Abbotsford. Now, I actually agree with that take. I do think he's going to spend a bulk of the season in Abbotsford, just to, get a little bit better, especially after how well he did in Abbotsford last season. I would like to see him continue that and then obviously earn himself another call-up to the big club. But that's just my own personal opinion on that. There's ample hype about the impact Willander might have this season, in addition to fellow young defenders Elias Pettersson and Victor Mancini. There are even some high hopes being handed out to the other prospect forwards like Aatu Räty and Archie Bains. I do think Aatu Räty will make the team out of camp, but again, that's just my personal opinion. But all is pretty quiet on the Lekkerimaki front. Should it be? Lekkerimaki just completed his first full season of North American hockey after having made a short 6-game cameo in Abbotsford at the tail end of last season. Prior to that, he'd spent just one full season in the SHL and played most of the rest of his hockey at the Swedish lower tiers. With that in mind, many were expecting a difficult transition for Lekkerimaki. Instead, he kind of lit the AHL on fire. Lekkerimiki's stat line for Abbotsford in 24-25 reads 36 games played, 19 goals, 9 assists, and 28 points. The reason he didn't play a full season has a little to do with a short-term injury, but much more to do with the fact that he spent 24 games in the NHL. His stint in Vancouver only included 3 goals and 3 assists for 6 points, which is not bad at all for a 20-year-old. But if we're talking about Lekkerimaki as a prospect, those AHL stats are obviously more important, and they're a fairly impressive and unique set at that. Let's be honest here, it's all about the goals, for one, because Lekkerimaki is a player who makes his reputation on goal scoring, and for another, because 19 goals in 36 games is an exceptional result for one's first season in the AHL. How exceptional? Lekkerimiki's 19 goals in 36 games works out to a goal per game rate of 0.528, which was good for the 8th best rate in the entire AHL last season. The list of players ranked ahead of Lekkerimaki is both short and consists entirely of players much older than him. Included are Abbotsford teammate Linus Karlsson, a league-leading 0.719 goals per game, and former Canuck Aidan McDonough at 0.625, and Daniel Sprong at 0.579. But both Karlsson and McDonough are 25 years old, and Sprong is 27. The only player with a higher AHL goals per game than Lekkerimaki, who is even truly quote-unquote prospect age, was San Diego's Sam Colangelo, 23 years old, with a 0.550 goals per game. To put up such numbers at such a young age and with so little prior experience is clearly an indicator of Lekkerimaki overall goal-scoring skill. We went back through the last several AHL seasons looking for comparables and came out pretty short. The only other 20-year-olds or younger to put up a goal per game rate like Lekkerimaki in recent memory are Quinton Byfield, 9 goals in 16 games in 2022-23, Nick Robertson, 16 goals in 28 games in 21-22, and Trevor Zegras, 10 goals in 17 games in 2021 at age 19. It's a fairly exclusive club, and we'll point out that Lekkerimaki has the largest sample size of the set and is also the only one to be new to North American hockey when he put up those numbers. This is also not a case of a young player receiving an outsized opportunity on a bad team. Lekkerimaki did this for a Calder Cup champion roster. It's a remarkable accomplishment any way you slice it. So how has Lekkerimaki gone from that to becoming underrated? Which seems to be the million-dollar question. Much of it comes down to how those aforementioned Calder Cup playoffs went down. Toward the end of the 24-25 campaign, Lekkerimaki suffered an injury that required some oral surgery. That seemed to impact his ability to put up any consistent points during his last run of play in Vancouver, and when he returned to the Abbotsford playoff lineup wearing a bubble cage to protect his mouth, these circumstances were clearly difficult and affecting his play on the ice. Lekkerimaki struggled, and with the rest of the Abbotsford team rolling, there was no time to allow him to work through it. As a result, Lekkerimaki wound up being made a healthy scratch for much of round 2 and into round 3, ultimately sitting out 8 of the team's 24 postseason games. The young Swede did return to the lineup once he was free of the bubble cage, and he did manage to put up some numbers in the end, finishing with 3 goals and 7 points in 16 games, but 3 goals in 16 games is a far cry from his regular season rate. With hockey being a sport of quote-unquote what have you done for me lately, it's not hard to see how this caused a bit of the shine to come off what was otherwise a truly excellent debut season for Lekkerimaki. The thrilling highs of the Abbotsford run couldn't help but contrast sharply with Lekkerimiki's personal struggles, especially since neither the younger Elias Pettersson nor Wielander took part in the run, leaving Lekkerimaki as the top prospect on the team. Him being made a healthy scratch made plenty of sense within the context of the situation, but it came off as a major disappointment all the same. Add that together with Lekkerimiki's less than consistent results at the NHL level last year, and you can understand why many just want him to play in Abbotsford and succeed there in 25-26, especially with the list of wingers currently ranked ahead of him, including Brock Besser, Jake DeBrusk, Connor Garland, Evander Kane, Niels Holmglander, Kiefer Sherwood, Drew O'Connor, and probably Karlsson and Baines too. Lekkerimaki has been lumped in more with the Vitaly Kravtsov crowd, the group of players who aren't out of the running but who need to have a really excellent camp to even have a hope of cracking the roster. And that's not untrue. Lekkerimaki would need to have a great showing to insert himself into that mix of wingers, but what is probably being underrated at this point, if not outright discounted, are Lekkerimaki's chances of having that great showing and cracking the roster all the same. Lekkerimaki has been healthy all offseason, giving him lots of time to work on his game. Last season, he could have been forgiven for taking a slight step back in the transition to North American hockey. Instead, he stepped forward, scoring as many goals in just 36 AHL games, as he had the previous year in 46 SHL games. In other words, Lekkerimaki transitioned to a smaller rink and tougher competition and still increased his goal-scoring rate. That says something about his upward trajectory, and it's not the sort of trajectory that can be easily interrupted by a short-term injury. The Vancouver Canucks are also in need of offense and shooters in particular. Last season, they were an especially low-shooting team, and they suffered as a result. They've added Kane to the roster, sure, but at the same time, they've dropped Pius Suter. Having someone come in with a pre-established ability to absolutely rip shots would be a significant plus, and that player is already available in the form of Lekkerimaki. His shot could be an especially potent addition to the power play, which has recently suffered from a lack of shooting velocity. Now, obviously, for those that saw Lekkerimaki's brief stint with the big club, the few goals that he did score were absolutely rippers and really had you maybe not completely mind blown, but some of them were like, he got into a good, scoring opportunity or a scoring position, ripped it, and you're just like, wow, that was one heck of a shot. It went through. Like, I was not expecting that, especially when you think about his first ever NHL goal, which was, I believe, assisted by JT Miller, if I'm not mistaken. And it was one of those one-timers where you were not expecting the puck to go into the net. And yeah, put it all together, and it sure sounds as though Lekkerimaki should be being penciled into a lot more 25-26 Canucks lineups than he currently is. That makes him an underrated prospect at least for the present moment, but perhaps not for long. So that is the article from Stefan Roger talking about, that begs the question and really kind of outlines why Jonathan Lekkerimaki is slowly becoming underrated. Perhaps, and I'm sure, now I'm not saying Lekkerimaki reads these articles or reads anything in the media, especially in particular if it regards him. But if I'm Lekkerimaki right now and I happen to stumble upon this article, this, at least for me, would certainly light a fire underneath my ass, and especially going into training camp would make me want to, prove everybody wrong and be like, hey, I deserve a chance on the opening night roster, so I'm gonna, bust my butt, and I'm gonna prove everybody wrong. So perhaps, the little chatter about Lekkerimaki becoming underrated might light a fire underneath his butt and get him going. But I want to know what you Canucks fans think. Do you guys think Jonathan Lekkerimaki is becoming underrated? Do you think he's, as what was mentioned earlier in the article, do you think he's slightly overrated? Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find and interact with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. Go ahead and follow that. You can find us on Instagram, where we are most active on Instagram at The Line Change. You can find us on X, where we are also very active at Line Change Van. You can also find us on TikTok at the TLC Podcast. You can also find us on Blue Sky at The Line Change, and feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. If you prefer an audio version of this podcast, You can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcast. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us. It is, of course, greatly appreciated and really helps out the podcast. But that's going to do it for me in this video. As always, let's go Canucks, and I'll see you guys in the next video.